Hi there guys, and welcome to another FPV guy video. I'm Bo Lorentzen, the FPV guy, and today we're going to be looking at something a lot smaller than what we usually look at. We're going to be taking a look at the new MicroDrone 3.0. This is a fantastic little drone that was started as an IndieGoGo crowdfunding project about a year ago. And by the time it was done, it had raked up more than $3.2 million in sales. And I can tell you right now, for being a small company starting this, $3.2 million is something that gets the attention of the entire world, including all of the other drone manufacturers. So it was started out by Vernon, and let's take a look at what he came up with here. And what I'm going to do in this review today, I'm going to look at what it does, but I'm also going to step through some of the promises and what it was people was looking at on IndieGoGo when they decided to buy this product. So follow along, and we're going to be looking at the product, but we're also going to be looking at how well Vernon managed to meet all the promises. And before we get started, let me just put it out on the table so it's out of the way. I think they did a great job at creating the MicroDrone 3.0, and I think they have pretty much met all the things and technologies that I would expect them to meet. So with that, I'm a fan and I'm really enjoying flying it. So what I have in front of me right here is basically a complete delivery. I have the MicroDrone 3.0, the camera, the smartphone holder for the radio, and the 3D goggles. All of this was kindly provided by Frank from carolinadrones.com, and Frank was an early backer of this project, and he kindly allowed me to pick up part of his rewards when I was in Las Vegas for CES earlier this month. So that is why I have gotten to have this in my hand so early. And I've got to tell you right now, all of the stuff I have in the boxes here was actually used to do demos in Las Vegas, so it's had a hard life. And we're just gonna give it a lot of benefit of the doubt, but it does give us a great idea of what we're looking at here. So let's get to it. I'm gonna put these things down real quickly, and we're gonna start out taking a look at the box with the actual MicroDrone 3.0. Let's see if you can see this on the detail camera. Flipping it up so we can open it, pull this little tab out. This thing comes up, putting it back down, and lid comes up. And here is the full content of the delivery. Up here, what you see is some mixed colors propellers, and that's because I ran out of propellers. I did some flying, I had a great time, and I can tell you how this flies. But at 4 or 5 batteries later, unfortunately, I spent all my propellers and I put some Rotor X propellers on. It actually does fly with those, but not as good as with the original ones. So Vernon, please, I need more propellers. Here is the drone, and along the edges here, you can see the bumper guard. The bumpers are attached to the motor and is about 6 grams. So with that, you can bounce into walls and many other things without destroying your propellers, mostly. And it also makes it safe around people, because if you fly into somebody, they're not gonna get hurt the way they would if the propeller was hitting them. And before I move on, I infamously suggested this looks a lot like a ladybird when I was in Las Vegas. And let me hurry up and put that to rest. It does look like a ladybird, but seriously, a Maserati or Ferrari car also to some degree looks like a Ford T car. They're not the same. Here is a ladybird, and this is about 10 millimeters shorter motor distance. You can see the propeller blades are significantly smaller. You can see that right here. This is about 10 millimeter longer per propeller blade. And it has a teeny little battery here, whereas the batteries for the MicroDrone are significantly bigger, and they also have an incredibly brilliant snap-on method that I have not seen on any other drones this size before. So let's take this, and in here with this quad, we also find there is the charger. Take a look at that thing. You can see the snap-on for the batteries here. And if I grab a battery, give you a really close look at that. You can see up here is the 3 holes, and on the other side there are 3 magnets. Now, for starters, what we do here is we literally just slide it down like that, and this also comes with a micro USB cable. So you connect the micro USB cable on the back side here, and now you plug it into a USB power source, and with that you started charging the battery. Once these 2 lights both goes green, you're done charging. Carrying on, let's pop up the top here. And below what we find is the Pro radio. Now, the one thing I do find is the definition Pro may be used just a little bit loosely, but it is really nice because clearly our friend Vernon knows how to fly a multirotor and other RC flying toys, because he has full 3-axis control here, and you can also mode switch without having to go into the radio. You can see the mode switch right here, and you have the standard flying and stunt mode flying option here, so you can limit it there. Now over here you have smart orientation. Push that button and it basically becomes intelligent orientation. It does not have a GPS, but what it does have is a compass. So when you choose that, now when you pull in and out, it's gonna fly along that smart orientation, and when you yaw, it's gonna rotate, but it will still fly along the compass direction at which point you selected your smart orientation. Moving to the top part of it here, you will see there's 3 flight modes, and the first one is slow. That's definitely where you should be starting if you're new to flying this. Move it down to fast and find it down to insane, which as it goes should be insanely fast. That depends what flight experience you have, because if you have flown a lot of mini quad racers, you're not gonna find this to be insanely fast, and we're gonna come back to the speed thing. On the front here also we have the power switch is right here, and now it is blinking because it's not connected to the aircraft. So let's turn this off and move on to the rest of the boxes. With the rest of the boxes here, the main thing that everybody is very interested in, me included, is the camera. Let's see if I can get that out here. They made some really nice little boxes. It's a nice presentation of this product. And okay, not quite Apple-like, but in the bubble wrap here, we find the camera. Here it is. And on top of the camera, you can see the 3 magnets. And I put some tape on here because, like I said, these units already had a hard life. And the way this powers up is very simple. It powers up by simply attaching it to the battery, just like that. And I actually took this flying on my radio hexacopter. It's a 6-motor microcopter, and I wanted to see how this compared to a Möbius camera. And let's come back to how the video compared. You can actually see in here there is lights on right now because I clicked the battery on. So the camera is running just like this. And we'll disconnect it again. In the next box we find the smartphone holder. And this one is a little bit different too. And here's what we got. Pull that out. Again, they did a pretty good job at the presentation. And that basically goes directly onto the back of the radio. Just literally slide this thing in, just like that. And now you have a smartphone holder. To attach the smartphone, what you do is first you pull out the little alignment guide here on the side to the distance that should work with your phone. I've got a fairly large smartphone, so I want a lot of space. Next, you hook it in onto the hookup here and literally just pull up, and there you go. You are now attached. This is really all you have, and you have a fairly nice working position here. I hook my fingers underneath. I can control my flight mode right here, and I can fly the aircraft very comfortably like this and reach the settings I want while I can see the video I'm getting on the screen. Now moving on, the final box in the kit here contains the Google Cardboard VR goggles. So here are these. You don't actually use the cardboard sleeve for anything other than protecting it. And to install it, let's start with removing the strap, the Velcro strap here, just like that. And you're gonna unfold this. So it comes out here and you're gonna push the goggle part, and it has some pretty serious diopters right here. You push that in till they go to the click. Next comes the nose piece right here. That comes in, folded in, and it fits right into this hole here. Now we're pretty much ready. The last thing we have to do is grab our smartphone, put it on top here, and put the entire lid on. Push in kind of hard so that it has a good grip on your phone. And here is your display. Finally, we need the strap. We're gonna hook the strap on each side like this. And now we're ready. We got a pair of goggles to watch FPV video. Now it turns out there is some lag in the video coming to your phone. It is not always the same lag, so because of that it can be hard to fly this thing FPV, but it is a perfect accessory to have a friend watch you flying while they're standing next to you. That I would say it's great for. To get started flying, the first thing we're gonna do is grab the battery and attach it to the bottom. In the snap-in mode here, you can see the lights went on. Now, in order to get the Wi-Fi set up, the next thing we have to do is put the camera on. Now, there is no manual yet, but my experimentation suggests that you can fly without the camera. But if you don't attach the camera, you can only fly it with the controller. However, with the camera attached, you get the option to fly either using your iPhone or using the controller. Now after we turn it on, you can of course see that we have the blinking lights here. That means we have not yet connected a control source. So to do that, we're gonna go to the settings and we're gonna click on MD 3.0, which is a Wi-Fi hotspot. Sometimes it takes a little bit of working. I see the spinning wheel and then it's finally connected. Now the next thing we're gonna do, of course, is go back out and we're gonna click on MicroDrone. What we get here is the screen, and you can see it now says connected. And there is controls on the screen right here. Now notice if I push my finger here, the control centers on my finger. So you don't have to worry about if your finger is offset on the screen. When you put down the finger, the control is gonna center. Over here we have the throttle, and if I push that up, it's gonna engage. Right now it's basically in completely manual mode. Now, the next thing we're gonna do is go click on the gear here. And I have this one set up to be handset or phone. If you look right here, it's one of the preferences. Control would be phone or handset. I have it set up to handset. If I clicked on phone now, the camera would now take over control of the MicroDrone 3.0 and I could fly it from my phone. However, being old-fashioned, I like flying with a handset. But before we go back out, let's take a real quick look at the options here. We can choose to have the trims. We can choose to have trims available. We can choose to get audio from the camera or from the drone. We can choose to use accelerometer. So if I say on, I would be tilting the phone instead of using the sticks to fly with. And here we can choose to enable or disable smart orientation. Or we can choose mode 2 or 4 for the sticks on the phone, not the sticks on the radio. But like I said, we're actually set up to use the handset. So let's turn the handset on. I turned it on. Now, before we can do that, what you have to do is move the stick up and back down. Now you heard that beep, and that beep basically tells you the system is armed. So if I throttle up now, we are gonna see the thing spring into action. The next thing I really want to show you is the video goggle thing. So if we take the controller, or rather the phone, let's take a look at how that works. We have the mode right here, and by clicking on that, I can select goggles down here. And when I do that, I get 2 pictures. That is because there is 2 pictures here. Now to see how that really looks, let's really quickly grab my friend, the Brad. And if you're not familiar with the Brad, we made this dummy head here to test goggles, like these pairs of fat sharks. Let's remove the fat sharks. And it's time to take a look at these. So we're gonna take this, and we do have video. What we're gonna do is just put it onto the Brad. And what you can see here is not completely clear, so this doesn't fit the Brad that well. And I can tell you, you actually see the complete square image on the phone without a problem. That is actually the first goggle I had a hard time getting to see. But you can kind of see the image we're seeing right there. There is a nice clear image, and it's fairly large. And like you can see on Brad's image here, and I'm going to show you some other Brad images to give you an idea. Taking the phone back out, I'm going to put that up to Brad. And here you can kind of see the double image. And that is actually right about the dimension it feels like when you look at it. So it's a fairly good FPV view. So there you have it, guys. We have looked at the video, and the part that's left to talk about here is how does it fly? And remember, we started out talking about the slow, fast, and insane mode and the invert options. Well, here's how it basically works. This has a fairly rudimentary flight controller. It's a 6-axis IMU, which is an inertia measuring unit in 6 axes. That gets us a long way, and this is a very, very, very stable flyer. If you're new to flying, you're gonna enjoy flying this. It's easy, you really can't go wrong with it. The way it flies is simple. Let me try to explain that. Here is the radio, and here is the roll stick and the pitch stick. That basically, when you are in the slow mode, there is a center dead point on the stick. So when you center the stick, the aircraft will level itself. You do not need to level it. It's going to level, and it will drift usually at a slow speed. Now, as you start moving the stick, when you get a little bit off from the center, the aircraft will then snap to an angle. It doesn't have the fine gradient in between. It has the centering, and then it snaps to the angle, and it starts drifting faster, or rather flying faster. If you move the stick the other direction, or if you let go of the stick, it's going to self-center itself again. And if you move the other direction, when you get past the dead space in the center, it's going to snap to about this angle and start flying this way, or forward or backward, depending on how you move the stick. Now, if you go to the fast mode, instead of snapping this much, it's going to snap about this much. So once you get past the center space, it's going to move a lot faster. Finally, of course, in the insane mode, all the way down, it snaps about this much. As you can imagine, as soon as you get past that center mode, it's going to go boom, and it's going to take off. So that actually goes quite fast right from the beginning, which is probably why it's named insane. I would rather have seen it being able to have a maximum, so that in slow, the maximum stick mode could go to this fast. But that it would start out with a little bit, and in insane, I would like to have seen maximum stick mode being like this much, but not that it starts at it right away. So if you're new to flying, by all means start out in the slow mode, and it's gonna snap to one of these two, and that's gonna give you a fairly controllable, very easy and agreeable flight profile. Next, let's take a look at the camera. We're gonna take it off the battery right here, like that. And on the bottom, you see the magnets. On the side here, you have a dipole. It looks like a 2.4 gigahertz frequency. Up front here, you have a little camera, and you can adjust the angle. So this is actually the upside with the metal buttons up. And usually when you fly, you probably want to adjust that down a little bit so that you see the ground. Now the camera records 720p, and you get that by inserting it here. Now what surprised me about the 720p is on my computer, I'm seeing the file here being 20 frames per second instead of 30 frames per second. So I'm hoping this is the pre-production camera and that the actual cameras will have 30 frames per second, because that's kind of standard. The other thing that surprised me was, and what I did was I put this camera on top of, and you can see it right here, I put it on top of a mini hexacopter to get a more powerful platform and really get some solid moves that without a lot of movements, because the drone has a lot of little adjustment movements. By putting the camera on a more powerful platform, I got less adjustment movements, and you can see the video here. I was using a Möbius camera, and you can see the MicroDrone 3.0 camera being inserted in the corner here. Let's just go straight to some of the MicroDrone video. And as you can see, there's a little bit of stuttering in the video here. To get one thing out of the way, I was using a very fast SanDisk 16 gigabyte memory card. That should certainly be fast enough for the low bandwidth of 720p. And the file sizes after the fact did not justify that there should be a problem saving files. The stuttering particularly seems to be visible when I do fast turns or pans, when there's a lot of details in the picture that's moving. So it seems like the bandwidth can't quite handle doing 720p. And that may be the reason why it is actually shooting 20 frames per second, this particular camera here. Now before we get carried away, it's not the end of the world, and the 20 frames per second actually looks quite well. We all have seen one of the keyframe 808s, and that camera does shoot 30 frames per second, but a keyframe 808 is actually 20 grams without having Wi-Fi. This camera is 15 grams with the included Wi-Fi, so it's a lighter camera, and we are probably sacrificing some functionality by using small light components. The entire aircraft here with the bumpers are about 65 grams, so that's a wonderful low weight. Now if we add the 15 gram camera, then what we get is an 80 gram flying platform. And you may remember from the website, they're planning to come out with tri-props and larger props. And at first I was wondering, will these motors be able to do that? And I can tell you right now, definitively, these motors can definitely drive bigger props. I actually cut my finger, and I've been flying the Ladybird for years. Never cut my finger on a Ladybird prop. And this, if you look at this, the motors are almost twice the diameter. So these motors are just so much more powerful than the little Ladybird motors. That is definitely, this is a powerful little animal. I'm looking forward to see some tri-props for this. That's going to give it a little more endurance, and it's going to hang better because it's going to get less wing loading. At least that's my prediction for that. I cannot wait to see how that works out. As you know, I fly goggles all the time. I fly minicopters with cameras, and I fly them using my goggles. And I have a little bit of video here. This was my first experiment. Several things happened, and after I started reading the specs, I understood why. I got up in the air, and as I started getting over the roof, my video started breaking up and completely disappeared, after which my aircraft crashed. So do not fly over the roof and out of sight. This aircraft will only work when you're actually having a line of sight to the aircraft. It's important to remember. Now, about the video, there is a lag. So you're going to find that from it sees it, and by the time it's done compressing the video and transmitting it over the internet connection, the Wi-Fi, and uncompressing it on the goggles, there is a quite significant lag. Sometimes it's very short, but it can sometimes slow down, and all of a sudden you have almost a 1 second lag time. So that makes it virtually impossible to fly FPV. What I would like to see is another camera module just like this The only difference is I want a 5.8 Fat Shark compatible downlink, but that's just me. But that is what you will need to fly real FPV using a pair of Fat Sharks with this, because the video to the smartphone is not fast enough to fly real FPV. The other thing, if you look at the video comparison with the Verbius, you'll notice that the video angle of this camera is about 50 degrees. That's a far cry from the wide video we usually use for slow, near to object FPV. And the problem is you're looking at this narrow tunnel, and if you're driving sideways, you may not notice that you're about to run into something over here because it's not wide enough. A wider image is gonna let you really see wide to both sides, and you get a much better feeling of slow motions forward, backwards, right and left, because you see the stuff on the side moving without actually looking at it. So please, Vernon, we need an FPV module. And we've looked at the good, the bad. The only thing left is the ugly, and the ugly is probably gonna be a disappointment to a lot of people. 4 seconds into the IndieGoGo video, you see this image rising up from what looks like San Francisco, and zooming in over the roofs, it's rock stable. And also the shots over the oceans, these shots are rock stable. They have got good details in the highlights and in the shadows. And I can only assume this was shot with a 3-axis gimbal, because frankly, there's absolutely no way in hell that this drone without a gimbal can shoot that video. And furthermore, this camera is just not capable of shooting the dynamic range we are seeing in those shots. So personally, I don't really believe that this camera was used for those shots, but that's just my opinion. I do think a lot of you are interested in the video, the ability to shoot shots and do selfies with this, and you are gonna see this is not quite the video quality that you noticed on the video. Now, moving on, there's one more issue left. We see two guys adjusting their goggles, going flying together, zooming down the road. That's well and good, but what I discovered when I flew over my roof was that's just not possible. You're not gonna see these flying 50, 100 yards down the road. It's simply not possible. In the specs, it actually says that the smartphone connection reaches about 50 feet. So let's call it 150 feet. 150 feet is still only 50 meters. So I don't feel that they're really delivering on the FPV racing feeling. And in addition, on the IndieGoGo website, they used a video from the French FPV pilots to show pod racing. I feel this gave me an expectation that the MicroDrone 3.0 can fly like that. It's fair to say it does not fly like that. It does not have the fine control at high speed, simply because it goes from center to one of these two positions before it starts flying. So it doesn't have fine control at high speed to zoom through small gates. You absolutely can do it, but you likely cannot do it at the speed you see in that video. So there we have it, quick wrap up. The good, 2 thumbs up, the drone works, the camera works, the batteries works, the remote controller works, and it all works with your smartphone. So they have managed to deliver a working MicroDrone, that's for sure. The bad, it doesn't all work quite as good as we would have hoped. 720p 30 frames per second have become 20 frames per second, and it does not reach as far as we had hoped for. Now really quickly, there's hope for the future. Vernon is making an extender for Wi-Fi that's going to allow you to fly out to 500 feet, but it's not yet available. We'll be looking forward to that one. And now the bad stuff. I'm sorry. This aircraft simply cannot recreate the French FPV pod racing scenes we have seen in the video on the IndieGoGo website. It's not possible, or at least I have not been able to do it. I would love to see you guys do it. And I really love to have people get together and let's go flying and let's race each other, because that's going to be a lot of fun. The other bad, I'm sorry guys, this is not a stabilized camera, and it's simply not possible to get that kind of smooth video that we saw on the IndieGoGo video saying that it's coming from the MicroCopter 3.0. There is gonna be some movements, as you can see here. That's about as smooth video as you're ever gonna get from this aircraft. So with that, this comes down to, am I liking this or am I completely disappointed? And I gotta tell you, without a doubt, I enjoy flying this, and I think this will be really, really popular, and a lot of beginners are gonna love flying this thing. I think advanced users are gonna be a little more cool towards this, but new users are gonna find they get a lot of features that they didn't have before. And I'm definitely gonna keep flying this. This was provided by Frank at carolinadrones.com. So I'm pretty sure there's going to be a limited time that I get to fly this, because Frank is probably going to be on the phone by morning asking for this to be returned. So Frank, I'm sorry I broke the propellers. I really had good intentions. I had a great time flying it, and I'm pretty sure they will send us some more propellers soon. So in spite of the shortcomings, I'm giving this 2 thumbs up. I had a good time with it. Stay tuned for more videos, and I'll see you soon.